After years of darkness, doubt, and divisive reboots, James Gunn has finally given us what we've all been waiting for. A Superman movie that actually feels like Superman. Not just a god in a cape, but a kind, grounded, genuinely good human person. And honestly, it might just be the Superman story of our generation. But first, I want to take a step back. Not to lengthen out the video, but to describe why in my opinion, this might just be the most important Superman story ever. Man of Steel released in 2013 with a completely different tone than before. Since Man of Steel's drastically different take on Superman, over a decade ago, the public perception of Superman had drastically changed from what it used to be in the 80s and the 90s. Gone was the campy, iconic, and lovable Superman of yesterday. Here was a much more grounded, darker story, tonally and visually, filled with all of the dick-kicking, cape-swinging action that felt like Fast and Furious on about 100 steroids. I've already talked in depth about my feelings towards Man of Steel, and while I don't believe it was a Superman movie it needed to be, I understand why it needed to be created, and why it will forever stand as an important movie in the annals of comic book history. Without Man of Steel's drastically different take, we never would have gotten back to the route of what made Superman so super in the first place, his humanity, and that's something Superman 2025 highlights so spectacularly. One of Superman's greatest character traits is the fact that despite all of his near immeasurable power, he has flaws. He loves, he cries, he suffers the heartache and the pain that can and will come with being a human, and he pushes forward anyway. He cares not just about humanity, but all life a lot, maybe sometimes too much. This is the same guy who would travel galaxies and fight intergalactic crime syndicates if it meant saving one ailing child. The man who would take terminally ill children to the moon for a day out of nothing but the kindness of his heart. Superman is someone we should all aspire to be like, someone who should be a role model to not just kids or comic book fans, but everyone of all ages. Sure, normal humans can't lift buildings, they can't fly or shoot laser beams out of their eyes, but everyone, and I mean every single human, has inside of them the capacity to be good. And that's what Superman is. He's a man who chooses to do good, not because it benefits him, but because it's the right thing to do in the world. Regardless of class, creed, or race, he believes that everyone in the world deserves kindness. And that is what this movie showed me. Not godlike imagery and a personality that doesn't reconcile with anything that Superman is supposed to represent or be about. It showed me a Superman that was earnest, heartfelt, that saved people with an actual smile on his face. A Superman who got upset over the death of a creature that was sent to destroy him. A Superman with heart, and one that cares so much about the planet he was sent to as a child, even if at moments the planet resented him. David Corenswet has been typecasted for Superman for years now, and since the day he was cast, I've been telling everyone who I could that if and when this movie comes out, he, alongside Rachel Brosnahan, will become the new de facto standard for Superman and Lois Lane, and I'm so happy to say that I was right. Corenswet brings this bumbling aura to Clark that makes you think he might drop over or clumsily trip over his lace if he's not careful enough, and while on the surface it may seem like his real self, it's when you peer deeper into his character that you realize that the identity of Clark Kent is such a meticulously and purposefully crafted persona in order to hide what he truly is. He's caring, kind, and compassionate, and always gives everything his full attention and energy. Sure, sometimes he trusts too much, but that's what makes him who he is. That trusting and kind soul is what makes Superman, Superman. And I think Corenswet knocked it out of the park with this performance. Lois has this tomboyish energy we haven't seen since Margot Kidder's historic take 50 years ago. She pushes Clark to the point where he gets angry and questions himself, questions if he could have done things better in any situation. She loves this guy, but has no idea how to express those feelings, especially after how easily Clark managed to express it to her. She's so sharp for the majority of the movie that slowly, seeing her change as Clark slowly peels back the layers and finally allows her to give her full heart to him, feels so earned and worth the wait. And I gotta say, Rachel Brosnahan absolutely destroys this performance and manages to bring this lifelike energy to Lois that I've been waiting to see on the big screen for so long now. The supporting cast is also so fucking good. It has been forever since we've actually got Jimmy Olsen in live action because wasn't the best representation. I have gone on record before saying that Jimmy Olsen is one of those characters that, while I don't mind changing up a bit, needs to be in Superman culture. He grounds the character in the same way that Robin grounds Batman. This version of Jimmy isn't a bumbling, nerdy photographer, he's got a bit more confidence, and I think Scarlett Gisondo brought a bit more suavite to this role, and it shows through his scenes with Lois, and helps bring his character into a more modern setting. Alongside the adventures of Superman Jimmy Olsen, having him in this story feels so refreshing and enjoyable to watch. My only real complaint is that we never actually get to see Jimmy and Superman interact throughout the film, which, while I'm not too upset about, feels like a missed opportunity for some great character interactions, especially considering how big of a fan Jimmy seems of Superman in this universe. Michaela Hoover as Cat Grant is great, despite what little role she plays in the story, alongside Beck Bennett as Steve Lombard, who was hilarious. Wendell Pierce was a standout for me, despite his role being so small. You could still feel the energy that he brought to the character despite that, and I definitely hope we get to see more of him in the future. Ron Troop is also in this, but has literally zero speaking lines, so I guess he's good. Christopher McDonald is a good actor, and I'm not sure if some scenes or lines were cut in post, but it definitely feels like he could have or should have at least said something in this movie. Anthony Carrigan as Metamorpho was probably one of the greatest things to come out of this movie, and he had this melancholic energy up until him meeting Superman and breaking out of the pocket dimension of him, and I desperately need a TV show of him or something. He's great, and I'm so eager for this universe to delve deeper into his backstory so we can see how exactly he became the Element Man in this universe. Alongside him, Nathan Fillion as Guy Gardner, Isabella Marcel as Kendra Saunders were absolutely incredible, but the standout for me had to be Eddie Gathegi as Mr. Terrific. He came absolutely out of nowhere and completely blew everyone after the water with his incredible performance. Him, alongside Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor, were probably my two favourite additions to this movie, and it was so fun to watch him on screen. Nicholas Hoult was essentially always universally agreed that he was going to be a great Lex Luthor, and he definitely did not disappoint in that category. He displayed this level of calculated yet completely psychotic genius that I had been desperately waiting to see on the big screen for ages, and I'll be really upset if he doesn't come back in some capacity in the sequel, which was essentially confirmed by David Corenso already. Now, like almost every movie, none of this is perfect, of course, and while most of my complaints with this movie do not stem from bad characters or insignificant plot points, they stem from a bunch of menial issues that I think can honestly be completely resolved by me just rewatching the movie again in a couple of days' time. But just in case my rewatch doesn't prove too fruitful, my complaints are something along the lines of this. While this movie is great in the second and third acts, I believe the first act took a bit too long to get to its feet, that by the time I was finally getting used to the pacing of the movie, it shot forward into the second and third acts, which, while great, did jar me a little bit going into it. On top of that, the two most important characters in Superman's life arguably are his parents, of which we saw them twice in this movie, and that did kind of upset me a bit, hoping and wishing there was a bit more that the Kents could do in this movie, especially given the circumstances. But aside from that, nothing. This movie is essentially a near perfect Superman tale, and it's actually kind of startling me how much I genuinely enjoyed this. I consider myself quite a critical person, and for the last 2.5 years I've been doing nothing but praying to high heaven that this movie comes out well, and the fact that it did has alleviated this sort of stress that I've been under as a DC fan. But this movie proved to me that, once again, as a DC fan, that there is still a chance for us to have success in the movie industry, and that this is only the beginning for these characters. And if all goes well, we have at least another decade of these awe-inspiring, breathtaking stories to enjoy, and I'm all here for it. James Gunn understands Superman. He gets the character of Superman, and this movie almost feels like a love letter to the character that James has described as having shaped the early stages of his life so much. And you can feel it. The passion is literally oozing out of the screen in every beautifully shot scene, and without a doubt, this is easily one of the best superhero movies I have had the pleasure to watch. Superman gets an easy 9.2 out of 10. If you haven't seen this movie, drop everything you're currently doing and go get tickets. I promise you, you won't regret bearing witness to such a fantastically crafted story full of love, heart, and pure passion. Knowing that a movie like this can evoke such a childlike smile on my face is comforting. I love Superman. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you later. Bye now.